Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. I'm your host for today, Blair, and I'm glad to say I'm joined by Chris Jack, who is fresh off the plane from Brugge. Chris, how was your journey back? You make it back in one piece?
I made it back in one piece, made it back slightly later. We got about 15 minutes out from landing at Edinburgh yesterday, and the announcement came over to say the airport was shut because of bad weather, which was a bit of a surprise because it didn't look that bad out the window. And when we did eventually land, it didn't appear that bad either. So we're only delayed about 20 minutes or so, thankfully. So it wasn't too bad. It could have been worse. And then, as per usual, you get back, you turn your phone on, and there's a barrage of emails and messages and WhatsApps and all the rest of it to catch up with over the Rangers news and what's been unfolding. So another busy day, and something tells me today could be just as hectic as well.
It just seemed like the perfect icing on a trip. That it looked like it was good fun off the park, maybe not so much on the park.
I think that's a fairly safe assumption to make, to be honest. No, we did have a good time off it. People would have seen a couple of pictures and stuff that I posted on the review social media. A lovely city, but as per usual, or as is so often the case, unfortunately, Rangers ruin it. Events on the park just utterly dreadful. Not a good night at all, and one that will have longer lasting ramifications, I believe. So, no, a good trip, a lovely city. One I'd actually go back to for a city break, but I don't know if I'd rush back and watch Rangers against Club Brugge again, because I fear the outcome may be similar.
Yeah, we'll put off talking about the actual football. The last 24 hours, it just seemed, was chaotic in the life of any Rangers fan, any Rangers journalist. It just seemed like every hour a new story was coming out. The story that you brought to us on the website yesterday, just as they were coming off air on yesterday's morning briefing, was that Russell Martin is safe in his position as of now. He's not under threat, as we understand it. The board aren't looking to make that change. When you heard that news yesterday, Chris, did that come as something of a surprise to you, especially given the meek performance the other night? I know that a lot has been made from a lot of quarters that how difficult it would be to come back from not only a result like that, but a performance. So when it was briefed to the press that he would be safe, is that something that took you back a little bit, or was it something you were completely expecting?
I think it was something I was completely expecting, to be honest. I don't think it comes as a massive surprise. Now, the morning after the night before, it would have been the easy thing, I think, for Rangers just to say, well, we'll try and bury our heads in the sand and we'll just pretend that none of this happened. That's not a realistic prospect right now. They can't just completely ignore the noise and the mood music around about the club. They have to be aware of the feeling of the fans. Certainly, I think mentioned this, Josh, on the show the other night. People spending £1,000 or so easily. Some of the corporate guys spending even more than that to go on these trips, and that's the performance that you're being served up with. In no terms is it acceptable, and it's not even understandable, because it was such a dreadful performance from a team that just completely collapsed. There was no need for it to be that bad, and it has put Russell Martin under real pressure. No, he was in the press conference when he spoke the other night and said that he had no fears over his position, and they'd already spoken to Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell. It would have been a surprise, I think, if Rangers had pulled the trigger there and then, and made that decision on a snap judgment almost. But the coming days, the coming weeks offer a different time for a bit of reflection, a bit of real analysis of where Rangers are, and more importantly where they're heading. As we've said on the show and on the site the last couple of days, the American ownership group will be at Ibrox on Sunday. If they needed any reminder or any insight into what they have signed up for and what they've invested in, it's going to arrive on Sunday. Ibrox will be quite the place at the weekend, and they will be left in no doubt about the feelings of the Rangers support. So I think after that then gives them a bit of time for a bit of reflection. Let's see where everything is and where Rangers are. And after that Old Firm game, they then have to decide if Russell Martin is the right man to lead Rangers forward or not. If they do, they back him. They have to do it publicly. And if they don't, they then make that change. So the coming days, I think, will be really, really interesting.
It's certainly a massive week that will we say this. It seems to be every game that will define the season, but it seems like the next game will define the season this year at Rangers. There was also the unprecedented move when we seen the statement coming out from the Rangers fan advisory board when they were calling for Russell Martin to be removed from his position. I don't recall the fan advisory board taking quite such a strong stance this early in the season, particularly on a manager. So I thought yesterday that was very telling that they had come out and gave their view that he should no longer be in the hot seat.
Very, very telling. That's an organisation that have a close working relationship with the club. They meet with the club on a regular basis. They meet with those executive figures on a regular basis, and for them to be as strong in that statement when they're under no real pressure as such. It's not as if it's like it was back in the Trust days or Rangers First or Club 1872, where they had a bit more of a presence and a bit more of a voice, and people were going to them. They were getting emails, they were getting messages, they were getting tweets. Why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you sticking up for the fans? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And then they almost feel as if they have to say something just because of the weight of expectation on them. I don't think there was a huge clamour yesterday for the fan advisory board to go and put out a statement basically calling for the manager to be sacked. So I think the fact that they did, telling, I think, is the word there. They're clearly reading the room, feeling the temperature of the Rangers fans, and feel that this is only going the one way. And that's one of the big questions, and one of the big things that the executive and the board now have to take into consideration. You look back at the last game at Ibrox Champions League. I think it was 43 or 45,000 was the attendance that night. For a game like that, Ibrox should have been sold out. Seen a lot of messages yesterday saying that the Old Firm game isn't a sellout. When you then get beyond that, and it's your run-of-the-mill league games, you've also got the cup games coming up as well. When you get to that stage and Ibrox is dwindling in terms of the attendances, that's when guys who are businessmen sit up and take notice. When you're losing money, not losing money, but you're missing out on money because a stadium that you thought was going to have 50,000 in it suddenly only has 40 or only has 30. That's a very different problem, and that's a problem that can only be solved if you get the fans back on side. Right now, the easiest way to get the fans on side is for Russell Martin to not be Rangers head coach. Whether that is the path they decide to go down or not, time will tell. But I don't think it was a surprise that he'll get the Old Firm game. He'll also speak to the press later on. Really interested to see how he handles that and what he says. But by the time we get into starting next week, the transfer window it closes on Monday night. Once we get past that, those next couple of days after that, that's when you really have to sit down and say, well, just where are Rangers as a football club, and where are Rangers going this season?
Yeah, as you said, Chris, Russell Martin speaking to the media this afternoon. I'll be out at the Rangers training centre today to see what he has to say, obviously looking back on the Club Brugge result and looking ahead to the small matter of that Old Firm game on Sunday. Lots of comments coming in asking about transfers. We will get on to that. We'll get on to all the rumours surrounding incomings and outgoings, which I'm sure they will be plentiful over the next few days. I know, Chris, Russell Martin has been saying that he is looking forward to the end of the transfer window. I think the only other man looking forward to the end of it quite as much as him is yourself, so that you can turn your phone off for a little bit and stop being harangued for transfer rumours every hour of the day, mostly by me, to be honest, who's just texting you asking things if they're true or not. So yeah, it'll be a very interesting few days to come. I just want to, I'm moving on from last night a little bit, but the the quotes that came out on the website last night from John Souttar following the game. He spoke in the mix zone after the Club Brugge result. I'll just read you some of these quotes from your piece earlier on. It can't happen. It's unacceptable. There's nothing really we can say to the fans. We can apologise, but it's just that. It's just words, and words aren't going to do anything. The only way we can do it is on Sunday. It's a massive game for us now, and words are not going to do anything. So we have to do something on Sunday. We owe it to them, we owe it to the club, but we owe it to ourselves to make a big performance on Sunday. Of course, the manager is coming under pressure, but he's not playing the game, is he? He's not conceding the goals we conceded. He's not pressing the way we pressed. Some interesting quotes here from John Souttar in the mix zone after the match the other night. He's clearly the players are taking, or seem to be taking, their share of the blame for what happened the other night, and if we're honest, what has been happening for the full season. But I think if you read those quotes, if you hear those quotes, I think most Rangers fans will tell you that they've heard this before, that this is not the first time that they've heard managers and players going, oh, we owe it to the fans, we owe it to the club to put in a performance. And I think that the fans are now becoming sick of words and inaction, and would rather people just kept their powder dry and let their actions do the talking on the park. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Ultimately, as you say, Blair, Rangers fans they've seen this movie. They know how it unfolds. They know the start. They know the middle. And unfortunately for Russell Martin, they know the end. They know how this can unfold and where this can lead to. It would be a remarkable turnaround, I think, now if Russell Martin is still the Rangers manager at the end of the season and he's got a bit of silverware in the cabinet. Happy to come back on a video and say that we all got it spectacularly wrong, but I just don't see it. You just get a feeling you've been through these situations often enough, certainly been through it far too regularly in recent seasons. It feels one of those moments that it's just so hard to come back from. And I think John Souttar he's right in what he says there. Ultimately, the fans don't want to hear apologies. No, the fans just want to see their team winning games. The fans want to see a proper Rangers side on the pitch. A Rangers side that's going to be competitive, a Rangers side that's going to be successful. And right now, the team looks a million miles away from that. I thought the other night it was a combination of both. Players make really poor decisions, daft decisions. Max Aarons, why are you making that? Why are you making that challenge? Some of the defending for the goals thereafter, completely unacceptable at any level. Never mind the Rangers side in the Champions League. But you then have to look at Russell Martin. Picked the wrong team. I don't think no one will convince me that side was the right side that should have started the game. And when you're a goal down, you're a man down. At that stage, it has to be damage limitation. It has to be Tav on, Raskin on, Fernandez on. You shut up shop, and as soon as you get the ball, you kick it or head it back in the direction that it came from, and you just defend for your lives for 80 minutes and try and get through it. You don't get to half time, ship 5 goals, and then make a couple of changes. Rangers could have lost by 10 the other night. It could have been I was going to say it could have been an embarrassment. It was an embarrassment. It could have been even worse. Look at the saves that Jack Butland has made, not just in that game, but in this tie and in the previous ties. Rangers could have had some real sore ones in this competition, and they're lucky that losing 6 the other night is the most damage that has been done. Russell Martin said after the first leg that'll be the toughest it'll ever be for them. It got a whole lot tougher the other night, and if things don't change, it could get a whole lot tougher for them again. So they're now going into an atmosphere at Ibrox that is going to be really telling. If you're not new to this club, which a number of these players are, the new ones will never have felt anything like what Ibrox is going to be on Sunday. The older ones, James Tavernier he's well used to it. Jack Butland will be well used to it. John Souttar will be well used to it. But for some of these other guys, it's going to be nothing like they've ever walked into. And those questions about character and mentality, they just don't go away. They never seem to go away until Rangers actually build a squad that has got the required minerals.
Yeah, it's been quite the week for Rangers fans, but we'll move on from what has happened midweek as we look forward to these last few days of the transfer window. Of course, thank you all for joining us on the Rangers Review, the morning briefing, and thank you to our sponsors, Willow's Fencing, the Glasgow-based fencing company, to help you out with any fencing work you need done. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. If we look ahead towards some transfer news, now this has been the parallel story that has been running next to the frankly calamity that's been happening on the park, off the park, has been all these transfer stories coming in. Mark says, any word on new players coming in and any out of the door? Well, let's start with a name that has been on everyone's lips for the past 24 hours or so, Bojan Majovski. We reported on the site yesterday that a fee was agreed with Girona to bring him to Rangers. It looks as though that one is all but done and he will be a Rangers player in the near future. Chris, that on paper looks like an exciting signing. It looks like it ticks a lot of boxes. I think that when he was leaving Aberdeen last season, I think that most Rangers fans would have bitten your hand off to get Majovski in the door. He certainly looked like he knows where the goal is in Scotland, which I think is something that Rangers fans and Rangers have been crying out for a long time, to sign guys who have been proven in this division, to play at the top end, who look like they can really make a difference domestically, because that seems to be what Rangers have missed for a long time. I know a lot of the argument has been, will a striker, any striker, thrive in this setup? Are they able to get chances? Are they able to really excel themselves the way that Russell Martin plays? So I think on the one hand, I'm cautiously optimistic that Bojan Majovski, if we're getting the same one that played for Aberdeen, then I think he'll really do a job for Rangers. However, I've seen the way that strikers get absolutely zero service in this system, and that does concern me.
I think you've summed it up well there, Blair. Will Rangers create the required level of chances? Will they have the guile? Will they have the quality in the final third to provide the service for any striker, to get the best out of any striker? There's been so much discussion over the number 9 position over the course of the summer. Igamane has dominated that. Dessers, there's been talks right at the start, and then it went quiet, and then that seems to have picked up again in the last couple of days. I think Majovski, I agree with Craig there. I think he should be an improvement. Is he going to be a clear difference maker? I remain to be convinced, and I think time will tell on that. But I think he should be an improvement on what Rangers have right now. They still need another one. If Igamane also has left, that deal is now done. He moves on. Dessers moves on. Majovski coming in. The second replacement is then really important. I know Yusuf Sharmiti, one that Josh had on the site on Saturday, I think he was the first to report that. I saw a couple of people down south picking up on that yesterday. Again, Rangers in those discussions. That doesn't scream out to me as the level of quality that Rangers are needing. So that would be a concern. Having said that, I do like Majovski. I think he could be good. I think he could be a good, smart bit of business. I would have liked to have seen him when he left Aberdeen. I'd have been pleased if he'd come in at that stage, but it was never really up on the table, just because of the financials and also what Aberdeen would have been looking for. So Majovski, I can get on board with. A lot depends on then who the third one is as we say, if Cyril Dessers does move on over the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's the other part of this, that if Cyril Dessers is to move out before the end of this window, and I think there is some suggestions that he may be on his way, especially when you look at those comments from Russell Martin after that game in Paisley, where he really offered up a little bit of insight into that situation, where he said that Cyril Dessers he knows the situation that he's in, he knows his ideal situation, but he's still trained well nonetheless. So if he was to make his way out before the end of this window, you're looking at Chermiti from Everton coming in. The concern for me, Chris, and I don't know if you agree with this, you look at Bojan Majovski, who, like I said, I think is a good signing. If you take him as your Igamane replacement, I think, okay, I'm good with that. I'm happy with that. I think I'd be happy with Majowski in the door. If you're looking at Chermiti as your replacement for Cyril Dessers, now Yusuf Chermiti is a man who he went to Everton for quite big money, I think £15 million from Sporting. He's not scored a single senior goal for Everton, and last season he played 4 games and didn't manage a single goal. So, I would be concerned that if this was the man that you were replacing Cyril Dessers with. Now, Cyril Dessers is frustrating, I think, to say the least, to a lot of Rangers fans. But Cyril Dessers always scores you goals, and he is a big personality in that Rangers dressing room. I think he is always one that fronts up to the press. He's always one that is a big voice. I think you and I have seen it countless times at Ibrox when there's maybe a disappointing result. Cyril Dessers is the man that comes out and speaks to you. He's the man that comes out and fronts up to it. So I think if you're losing Cyril Dessers, you're losing a lot more than maybe just his goals. And then to replace him with a young man who hasn't really made a mark in British football, hasn't really set the world on fire at Everton, for him to come in and be the Dessers replacement, I think that would be a little bit of a worry if that's the route that Rangers do choose to go down.
I think you've touched on the 2 points of the two sides of Cyril Dessers there. For me, there's 3 big aspects to Dessers. He's shown that he can score 20 goals a season. He's shown that he can play 40 more games per season, and he's shown that he's a big presence in a dressing room. And all of those things are qualities that Rangers can't really afford to lose right now. Now, no one can say that he's a perfect number 9. He's not. I've spoken hours and hours on this show and written thousands of words on Cyril's failings and the chances that he's missed and things that he should have done better. We've also spent a lot of time and I've also written a lot of words about the good things that he does. He's shown that he can be relied upon to score a certain number of goals. He's shown that he can be relied upon to play a certain number of games, and he's shown he can be relied upon to be that one of those figures in a dressing room. And the manager touched on that again over the last couple of days about big figures and character, and again, it's a point that the fans continue to hammer home because it's so important. You need to have the right mentality to play for a club like this. You can be the best player in the world technically. You can understand the game tactically better than anyone else in the division. See, if you don't have the mentality to play at Rangers, you're not going to succeed here. You need to be able to handle it, and I think Dessers has shown that he can do that. And if Chermiti is the like for like replacement on that particular transaction, I think Rangers are then weaker. If it's Majowski for Igamane, I think Rangers are stronger, only because Igamane did not want to be here. Igamane is technically a better player than Majowski. I think he's certainly got a higher ceiling. No surprise to see Hamza Igamane go on and have a really, really good career in the game, but he didn't want to be here. He had no interest in being a Rangers player for this season. Head had been turned. He had chucked it. He wanted out. That's been played out over the last few days or so. So in that regard, Majowski for Igamane, I think, is a good bit of business. If it's Chermiti for Dessers, I'm not convinced that that's an upgrade for Rangers. That seems like a big leap of faith in a player who, as you've outlined there, in terms of his numbers, just doesn't have a track record. And I don't know him personally. Don't know what he's like in a dressing room, but given what he's done in the game and where he's been, you'd be surprised if he's also got nowhere near the level of experience or the experience to call upon as Cyril Dessers. So I think that particular move would take a bit of convincing for the fans if Rangers say that's an upgrade in that particular department.
I think the other elephant in the room, touching on Fraser's comment here, the Raskin situation is massively concerning me. Nico Raskin is a player that everyone has been talking about since Russell Martin came in, really. Like, where is his position in the team? As soon as you sign Joe Rothwell, I think Josh wrote about this on the site yesterday. when you signed Joe Rothwell, it immediately cast doubt upon the future of Nico Raskin, when I think most Rangers fans would have been unequivocal in saying that he was the best player last year. As far as his future goes, Chris, we've got a few days left of this transfer window. The suggestion is that he may be on his way out before Monday's deadline. There are a lot of rumours circulating around his future, of course, fuelled by his own father putting out that statement yesterday in the Belgian press, where he was very critical of Russell Martin. Indeed, Nicholas Raskin, a name that may or indeed may not be here come Monday, and is looking like the latter.
Those comments from Russell Martin the other night were really interesting. He certainly didn't shoot down the prospect of Nico leaving. He didn't say, yes, he's definitely heading out, but he said enough, and he left it lingering there for people to start drawing their own conclusions. It looks like Nico is... I think there's certainly huge doubt about his place in this squad now. And if he does move on, Rangers clearly have to replace him. You can't lose a player of that quality and not replace him. And I think it's almost the timing is such a big thing now. If it had been a case of they sell Raskin right at the start of the summer for a big fee, he moves on with everyone's best wishes on a real high. Given recent events, people will say, well, why was he not given a proper chance? What was his relationship like with the manager? They'll almost blame Russell Martin for Raskin moving on this summer. He's a guy that the fans have just got such a lot of time for. There's a lot of talk about on the show towards the end of last season. Give him the captaincy, give him a new contract, be the guy that you build that side round about. I'd like to have seen that. I think he's a guy that Rangers could have built this team round about. Russell Martin's clearly got his own ideas, and Joe Rothwell is the man that is playing in that position that Nico Raskin wants. I think the manager said pre-match the other night he picked the best team to be more attacking and be best in terms of, I don't think it was fitness, but it was energy or something like that. Like he paraphrasing a wee bit. There's no way that Raskin should not have been in that team, and Joe Rothwell should. Raskin brings so much more to that midfield right now than Rothwell does. And if Raskin isn't involved against Celtic at the weekend and Rothwell is, which as we expect, Joe Rothwell will be, I think people will have fears over Rangers losing that midfield battle once again. And if you lose that midfield battle against Celtic, you inevitably lose the game, because from there they control it, they get the ball into their front three, and it might not be a front three that's got the quality that it perhaps has had of late, but that Rangers defence is so easy to get at and get through. So I think that if Rothwell starts, it's a big call from Russell Martin, but it's all pointing that way at present. And unfortunately for Rangers fans, there's more and more things pointing at Nico Raskin not being a Rangers player come next Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it's just we'll see what happens with that over the coming days. Certainly one to keep an eye on, and you hear about that first from the transfer guru that is Chris Jack. He will have you in the know before anyone else. Looking ahead to Sunday again, Chris, just a small matter of an old firm game. Tom raises the point here. Do you think Russell Martin will change tactically for the Celtic game? I must admit, Tom, I can't see that myself. Russell Martin seems to be a man who is wedded to his own philosophy, wedded to his own dogma and ideals about how to play football, for better or worse, and certainly it seems to be for worse thus far. I don't see him changing the way that he's going to play. I don't really see him changing a lot of personnel either. I think James Tavernier comes back into the side. I would be pretty surprised if you put Max Aarons back in there again after what happened the other night. I think if the Majowski deal gets over the line in time, then I would absolutely be tempted to throw him in up at the end of the park, because I think he instantly becomes the best option that Rangers have. And then in midfield, I think, depending on how the Nico Raskin situation develops over the next few days, I think he is absolutely, for me, the best option against Celtic. But depending on where his future lies and how the weekend goes, I think it'll be Joe Rothwell.
I Unfortunately, I agree. Not because I don't want to agree with you, but just because I don't think it's that's the right way for Rangers to shape up in midfield. An ideal world, Raskin plays, but we're not living in an ideal world, are we? The right back situation that you mentioned there, it simply has to be James Tavernier. There is no way that you can put Max Aarons back in when he looks absolutely devoid of confidence, looks completely shot. It has to be James Tavernier that goes in at right back. In terms of the question, in terms of the will Russell Martin change it up? I don't see it. This is the way he approaches matches. This is the way he wants his side to play. This is what he has worked on and will continue to work on while he is head coach. That some of the chances that Rangers gave up the other night against Brugge, they didn't have to work hard for them at all. Now, you can't take anything away from the quality of Brugge from middle to front. We don't really know how good Brugge were defensively because Rangers never really got close enough to give them any questions to answer over the two legs. But certainly middle to front, I thought Brugge were really, really good. And you have to give them huge credit for the way that they won the tie. But Rangers didn't make it hard enough for them. If they don't make it hard for Celtic, yes, as I said there, it's not a Celtic side that has the same quality of late, but they have more than enough about them to go and cause Rangers some real problems. So there's a lot on the table for Rangers heading into the weekend, and Russell Martin has to find a way to get a result and to get a performance and to try and get people back on side. But as we said right at the top of the show, I think he's fighting a losing battle.
I'll just bring you some breaking news here, Chris. It's just been confirmed on the Lille social media accounts that Hamza Igamane has indeed joined Lille. That move has gone through. We're just waiting on official confirmation of from Rangers, but it is on. There it is now. We can confirm that Hamza Igamane has joined Lille for an undisclosed fee. He leaves with the best wishes of everyone at Rangers. So that move has been finalised. Chris, Hamza Igamane leaves to go to Lille. I think just before we wrap up for today, just your final thoughts on the Hamza Igamane situation. I think he's a player that showed a lot of promise when he was here. He gave us some incredible moments, not to mention that goal that won at Celtic Park. But a real shame the way it ended. I would have liked to see him left a bit more favourably in the hearts of the fans. But hopefully in the future we can look back with a little bit more fondness than I think is felt at the minute.
I think he'll go and have a really good career. I think he's got enough about him to suggest that he's going to be a really good player. I think Rangers has certainly been good for him. It's given him a platform to go and score Old Firm goals. It gave him a platform to go and perform so well in European fixtures, and it gave him an experience of playing in front of a demanding crowd, an expectant crowd. That could only have brought him on. Of course, he was in at this club in difficult circumstances during the Clement time. He's in and out the team under Barry Ferguson. It's been a really difficult few weeks for him this season, but that all kind of stemmed from the start of the summer and basically him believing that he wasn't going to be here. I think the fans will be disappointed with how it ended. His final game as a Rangers player was sitting on the bench and telling the manager that he didn't want to come on. That's not a nice way to leave a club. But he's got what he wanted. He's got his move. And Rangers have got a decent enough fee for him that they can then go and try and reinvest in the squad. So overall, I think it's been a short, sometimes sweet, sometimes controversial. But I think Rangers have been good for Hamza Igamane. I think Hamza Igamane has been good enough for Rangers, but it feels like a deal both last season and right now that suits all parties.
Absolutely, Chris. Well, that'll do us for this morning. Thank you very much for joining me to dissect all things Rangers. As we said, folks, that press conference will So I'll be out there at the Rangers training centre bringing you all the words from Russell Martin as he looks ahead to that Old Firm game on Sunday, looks back at the battering in Bruges, and hopefully we'll get an update on Bojan Majowski. But for now, thanks for watching and thanks for listening.